Sometimes silence isn't empty, it's full of answers, but the problem is we're too noisy to hear them. Pause, look around at audience. We talk, we argue, we complain, but how often do we truly listen? Not just to others, but to ourselves, to life, to God. You don't have to prove your point every time. Sometimes, silence itself proves your maturity far better than 1,000 clever words ever could. Have you ever noticed how quick we are to defend ourselves? The moment someone misunderstands us, criticizes us, or questions our worth, we instantly feel the urge to speak, to explain, to argue, as if our value depends on convincing others. But true strength doesn't come from shouting louder. It comes from standing calmer. When you choose silence in the middle of chaos, you are not weak. You are powerful. Because silence is not the absence of response, it's the presence of self-control. It's saying to the world, I don't need to fight to be right. People often think that if they don't respond, they lose. But in reality, silence often wins the bigger battle, the battle over your emotions. Have you ever been in a situation where someone insulted you and you felt that burning desire to respond instantly? Your heart races, your mind starts preparing comebacks. But then, something inside you whispers, stay quiet. That's not weakness, that's wisdom speaking. Because silence has a power words don't. Words can be twisted, misunderstood, or used against you. But silence cannot. Silence is like a shield, it protects your peace and your dignity. When you're silent, you give space for the truth to unfold on its own. You don't rush to defend yourself because you know time will reveal what words never can. People may speak against you today, but your calmness, your poise, your silence, they speak louder tomorrow. The loudest person in the room may get attention, but the calmest person earns respect. Look at the ocean, vast, deep, and silent. You don't hear it shouting about its greatness, you feel it. That's how silence works. It doesn't demand recognition, yet it commands presence. In the same way, your silence builds an invisible strength, an inner confidence that says, I don't need to prove myself. I know who I am. Silence also teaches you patience. In a world that reacts instantly, silence allows you to respond intentionally. It gives you the pause between stimulus and response, that sacred space where wisdom lives. The person who can stay silent when provoked is far stronger than the one who can lift heavy weights, because it takes true inner strength to hold your peace when your ego is screaming to speak. And the beauty is, silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing something higher, observing, understanding, forgiving. When you stay silent, you begin to notice things words often blur, your thoughts, your emotions, and even the energy of people around you. You start realizing that most conflicts aren't worth your voice, that peace is more precious than proving a point. So the next time someone tries to drag you into unnecessary drama, just smile and stay silent, because your silence will confuse them more than your words ever could. And slowly, you'll notice something magical. Your silence begins to command respect, your calmness becomes your strength, and your maturity starts speaking volumes without uttering a single word. That's the power of staying silent. It builds a kind of strength no argument can ever give you, the strength of peace, patience, and purpose. When you stop reacting, the world loses power over your emotions. It's as simple and as deep as that. Most of the time, our peace isn't destroyed by what happens to us, but by how we react to what happens. Someone says something rude, and suddenly our mind starts boiling, our heart beats faster, our words get sharper. We lose our calm trying to prove we're right or to get even. But think about it. Did their words really have that power, or did we give them that power by reacting? Silence protects peace because it disconnects you from unnecessary noise. It creates a small sacred distance between your emotions and your response. In that space, you find clarity. You start realizing that not every opinion deserves a reaction, not every comment needs an answer, and not every situation requires your energy. The world will keep testing you with insults, disappointments, delays, and misunderstandings. But your true test isn't in how loud you shout back, it's in how quietly you can stay centered. When you stay silent, you protect your inner environment. You stop letting outside chaos become your inside storm. It's like having an umbrella in the rain. You can't stop the rain from falling, but you can stop it from soaking you. That umbrella is your silence. It shields your peace. I remember once someone asked, "How do I stop getting angry when people are unfair to me?" I smiled and said, "Be realizing that their words reflect their state, not your worth." You see, when someone is angry, insecure, or unhappy, their words are a mirror of their own inner world. When you react, you join their storm. When you stay silent, you stay on the shore. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your peace to not let others disturb it. It's choosing maturity over madness. It's saying, "I'll protect my mind, no matter how loud the world gets." Because the truth is, peace is the most expensive thing you own, and silence is the only way to protect it. Have you ever noticed that after a heated argument, even if you win, you feel drained? That's because peace never exists in noise. You might win the debate, but you lose your calm. And later, when emotions settle, you regret things you said in anger. But when you choose silence, you walk away with something far more powerful: self-respect. In silence, your thoughts become clear. You start seeing the situation as it truly is, not through the fog of your anger. Sometimes, the best way to win a battle is not to fight it at all. When you stay silent, you let time speak for you. And time has a way of revealing truth that arguments never can. People often mistake silence for weakness. They think if you don't respond, you're afraid. But the wise know silence isn't fear, it's focus. It's the decision to rise above, not sink below. The world is full of noise, opinions, gossip, judgments. But peace belongs to those who can smile and stay silent amidst it all. When you start practicing silence in conflict, something magical happens inside you. You start feeling lighter. You stop carrying the weight of every reaction, every justification. You realize you're not responsible for fixing everyone's misunderstanding or changing their perspective. You simply do your part, stay kind, and move forward in peace. Silence is like meditation in motion. You don't have to sit with your eyes closed. You just have to stay calm when the situation pushes you to explode. Every time you choose silence over reaction, your mind becomes stronger, your emotions steadier, your soul more peaceful. So, when someone tries to provoke you, remember, they can only disturb you if you let them. You can't control their words, but you can always control your response. Let silence be your protection, your wisdom, your peace. Because when you stop reacting, nothing outside you can control what's inside you. And that, my friends, is true freedom. You start hearing what others don't say. The emotions behind words, the silence behind the smiles, the pain behind laughter. That's what true understanding really means. Most people listen only to reply, not to understand. They wait for the other person to stop talking just so they can start. But when you stay silent, you learn to truly listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Silence gives you the space to observe deeply. When you're quiet, you begin to notice the little things, the tone in someone's voice, the hesitation before they speak, the sadness hiding behind their "I'm fine." In those small pauses, life reveals its truths. You begin to realize that people rarely say what they really feel. Some are too scared, some are too proud, and some simply don't know how to express it. But when you stay silent, you can see through the noise into the soul. Have you ever been with someone who just gets you, even when you don't explain? That's the gift of silence. It sharpens your empathy. You start feeling before thinking. You start sensing what people mean rather than just hearing what they say. Because understanding isn't found in words, it's found in awareness. Most conflicts in relationships happen not because people stop loving each other, but because they stop listening. Everyone wants to be heard, but very few know how to hear. When you stay silent, you give others the gift of being truly listened to. And that's one of the most beautiful gifts a human being can offer. It's saying, "I'm not here to respond. I'm here to understand." Think about it. When a friend comes to you with a problem, do they really want your advice, or do they want your presence? Most of the time, they're not looking for solutions, they're looking for understanding. Silence gives them that safe space. Your quiet presence becomes healing. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, just to sit, listen, and let them release what's been locked inside their heart. In silence, understanding goes beyond words. It extends to life itself. You begin to understand nature better. You notice the calmness of the sky after a storm, the rhythm of the waves, the stillness of the trees. You start learning that everything in life communicates, even without language. The problem is, we're too loud to hear it. When you slow down and become silent, the universe starts whispering wisdom in ways words never could. Silence teaches you patience in understanding. You stop jumping to conclusions. You stop assuming. You start seeing from others' perspectives. You begin to realize that everyone is fighting battles you can't see. A rude word may not come from arrogance but from pain. A cold attitude may not be disrespect. It might be fear. Silence gives you the wisdom to see beyond behavior into the reason behind it. When you cultivate this kind of listening, your relationships transform. People feel safer around you because they sense that you're not there to judge or interrupt. They open up more, they trust more. And when they do, the connection becomes deeper, built not on words, but on understanding. In this world of constant talking, true listeners are rare. Everyone wants to express, but few want to understand. Yet, the most peaceful people are the ones who have learned that understanding brings harmony. Silence becomes their strength, their language of compassion. So practice the art of silent understanding. Next time someone speaks, resist the urge to reply quickly. Just listen, not to their words, but to their emotions. Look into their eyes. Feel their energy. Because when you listen silently, you begin to connect on a level where words cannot reach. In that silence, you don't just understand others, you begin to understand yourself. You notice your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own patterns. You learn why you react the way you do, why you feel what you feel. Silence helps you hear the whispers of your own heart. That's the beauty of it. Silence deepens understanding, both outward and inward. It helps you understand people, life, and yourself. And once you truly understand, you stop judging, you stop reacting, and you start living with a heart full of compassion and a mind full of peace. Every wise person speaks less because they think more. Silence gives birth to clarity. It's in those quiet moments when the world slows down that the mind finally begins to see things as they are. When you talk too much, your mind gets clouded with noise, opinions, reactions, unnecessary thoughts, and you lose touch with truth. But when you remain silent, your inner world becomes still, and from that stillness comes understanding, insight, and wisdom. You see, wisdom doesn't come from talking, it comes from observing. The wise don't rush to respond because they understand that words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They pause, they reflect, they allow silence to do its work before they let their mouth speak. That's what gives their words weight. Their silence shapes their speech. Their restraint gives their message power. Have you ever noticed that people who always need to say something often end up saying nothing meaningful? But the one who waits, listens, and speaks only when needed, that person's words have value. Their silence in between becomes as powerful as their speech. Silence, in this sense, is not an absence of thought, it's the womb of wisdom. When you practice silence, your mind starts filtering what truly matters. It's like when muddy water is left undisturbed. Over time, the dirt settles at the bottom, and the water becomes clear. The same happens with our thoughts. When you stop talking, the noise settles, and suddenly, what was confusing becomes clear, what was complicated becomes simple, and what was hidden becomes visible. That's why great thinkers, saints, and philosophers have always valued silence, because in silence, the truth reveals itself. Silence also saves you from regret. How many times have we said something in anger, in haste, in emotion, only to wish we could take it back? The moment the words leave our lips, we realize they caused pain or misunderstanding. But a silent person avoids this trap. They don't rush to speak, they choose their words like a craftsman carving art from stone. Slowly, carefully, with intention. That's wisdom in practice. When you stop filling the air with unnecessary speech, you start hearing the subtle voice of your intuition. That inner voice, which is often drowned by noise, begins to guide you. You begin to trust your instincts more, not because you know everything, but because you're quiet enough to listen to what your soul is saying. Silence opens that channel between the head and the heart, and once those two are aligned, clarity naturally follows. Sometimes silence becomes your teacher. When you sit quietly and observe your thoughts, your surroundings, your emotions, life starts teaching you lessons without uttering a word. You begin to realize how much wisdom hides in stillness. The breeze teaches you about gentleness, the mountains about patience, and the river about persistence. None of them speak, yet they teach endlessly. Nature is the greatest example of silent wisdom. Wise people understand this. They don't waste words trying to prove how smart they are. They let their actions, their peace, their silence speak for them. Because when you are truly wise, you don't need to convince anyone. You know that truth doesn't need noise, it only needs presence. Silence makes you aware of that truth again and again. Silence also sharpens perception. When you don't rush to answer, you start seeing the layers beneath situations. You begin to understand not just what's happening, but why it's happening. You can sense patterns, motives, and consequences long before others do. That's the depth silence gives you. It slows time down enough for you to think deeply before you act. In our world today, people mistake fast thinking for smart thinking. They think quick replies mean intelligence. But wisdom doesn't rush, it reflects. It takes a step back, it breathes, it allows things to unfold. Silence gives you that pause, the pause that separates reaction from understanding. And what's beautiful is silence also brings humility. The more you stay silent, the more you realize how much there is you don't know. You stop pretending to have answers for everything. You listen more, learn more, grow more. True wisdom is never loud because wisdom knows that learning never ends. So, whenever you feel lost, confused, or overwhelmed, don't look for more opinions, look for more silence. Sit quietly, breathe, and let your thoughts settle. In that stillness, answers will begin to form. Because the mind may argue, but silence always knows. The world shouts, but the soul whispers, and only in silence can you hear it. That's why the wise cherish silence. It's not emptiness, it's fullness, full of understanding, reflection, and clarity. Silence doesn't just make you quiet, it makes you intelligent in the most graceful way. It teaches you when to speak, what to speak, and when it's better to say nothing at all. And in that balance between words and silence, you discover the truest form of wisdom, one that guides not only your speech, but your entire life. People listen more to those who speak less because every word feels valuable. There's a quiet kind of respect that grows around someone who doesn't talk all the time, someone who chooses words carefully, who listens more than they speak. Silence builds an aura of depth. It makes people curious, attentive, and reflective. In a world where everyone is talking to be heard, the one who remains calm and speaks with intention becomes magnetic. When you speak less, people begin to notice how you speak. They wait for your words because they know you won't waste them. Every sentence carries thought, meaning, and purpose. It's not the volume of your voice that earns respect, it's the value of your words. People may ignore noise, but they pay attention to wisdom. And wisdom often lives in silence. Think of the great leaders, saints, or mentors you've admired. None of them were constantly talking. They didn't rush to share their opinions. They spoke when it mattered, and when they did, people listened. Because silence adds gravity to speech. It makes your words land deeper. It's like a drum beat. The pauses between each strike are what create the rhythm. Without those pauses, it's just noise. The same goes for communication. Silence is what gives your words power. When you stay silent, people sense that you are not impulsive. They feel that you think before you respond. That thoughtfulness earns trust. In relationships, in leadership, in conversations, silence signals wisdom. It tells people that you don't just talk to fill space, you speak to add meaning. And that difference is what earns lasting respect. Silence also gives you a chance to understand the energy in a room before you speak. You observe people, their moods, their emotions, their intentions. And once you understand the situation fully, your response becomes far more powerful. Most people lose respect because they speak without awareness. They interrupt, they react, they over-explain. But those who stay silent first and speak later, speak with precision. And precision always commands attention. When you speak less, you also give others the gift of being heard. People feel safe opening up to you because they sense that you listen without judgment. And when people feel heard, they feel valued. That creates a silent bond of respect. You don't need to demand it. You naturally receive it through your calmness and presence. There's also a subtle beauty in mystery. When you are not constantly revealing everything through your words, you create intrigue. People become curious about what you think, how you see things, what you'll say next. Your silence creates a quiet power, not the power of dominance, but of dignity. You become the person whose presence itself speaks volumes, even when your lips don't. Sometimes people confuse silence with arrogance, but those who truly understand life know that silence is humility in action. It's knowing that you don't need to prove yourself to be respected. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. Your calmness becomes your confidence. Your silence becomes your strength. Have you noticed how, in an argument, the one who shouts the most usually loses respect, while the one who remains calm gains it? That's because silence shows control, and control is a sign of strength. It's easy to speak without thinking, but it takes discipline to hold your words. When you remain composed while others lose their temper, you show that your emotions don't control you. You control them. And people respect that deeply, even if they don't say it. Silence also gives others time to reflect. Sometimes, when you don't respond immediately, people start thinking about what they said. Your silence becomes a mirror that makes them confront their own words. That quiet moment often teaches them more than any long explanation could. Silence can be the most powerful answer to misunderstanding, criticism, or negativity. It's not retreat, it's mastery. When you cultivate this kind of silent strength, your reputation begins to change. People start describing you as calm, composed, wise. They approach you differently, not with noise, but with sincerity. They start measuring their words around you because they sense your depth. You create a space where communication becomes mindful, not chaotic. That's the silent influence of respect. And here's the most profound part. When you speak less, your inner world becomes quieter too. You stop wasting energy on unnecessary talk, gossip, or defense. You preserve that energy for things that truly matter, for thinking, creating, praying, and loving. That inner silence reflects outward as grace. People can feel it even without you saying anything. So, speak when it's necessary and stay silent when it's not. Let your silence build your image, your character, your reputation. Because in the end, people may forget your words, but they'll never forget the peace they felt in your presence. Respect doesn't come from how much you say, it comes from the calm power you hold when you choose not to say anything at all. In every relationship, not every battle needs words. Some need quiet understanding. The strongest bonds are not always built through long conversations or constant explanations, but through silent empathy, the ability to feel what the other person feels, even when nothing is said. Silence in relationships doesn't mean distance, it means depth. It's the kind of silence where two people can sit together without talking and yet feel completely connected. Most people believe that communication is only about speaking, but true communication begins in silence. When you stop talking and start listening, not just with your ears, but with your heart, you begin to understand what the other person truly needs. Because not every emotion has words. Some pains, some disappointments, some fears can't be expressed, they can only be felt. Silence gives you the space to feel those things for the other person. It allows compassion to replace conflict. When you argue, both sides are trying to be heard. But when one person chooses silence, not out of anger, but out of maturity, the energy of the conversation changes. It becomes calmer. Silence gives you time to understand, to reflect, to respond with love instead of reacting with ego. It takes incredible strength to hold your tongue when your mind wants to defend, to attack, to prove a point. But when you stay silent, you choose peace over pride. And that choice can save many relationships from breaking. Imagine this: a couple is arguing. Voices rise, tempers flare. But one of them pauses, takes a deep breath, and says nothing. That silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's a statement that says, this relationship is more important than being right. That moment of silence allows space for calmness to enter, for understanding to begin. Many relationships would heal if one person simply chose silence instead of shouting. Silence teaches patience in love. It reminds you that people need time to process their feelings, that sometimes they don't need advice, they just need your quiet presence. Have you ever noticed how comforting it feels when someone simply sits with you when you're upset without saying anything? That's love in its purest form. No words, no lectures, just presence. Silence allows emotions to breathe. It lets the other person feel safe enough to be themselves. In friendships, silence plays an equally powerful role. True friends don't always need to talk to understand each other. Sometimes a look, a gesture, or a quiet smile can communicate more than hours of conversation. Silence in friendship builds trust. It says, I don't always need to hear from you to know you care. It's the kind of bond that doesn't rely on constant reassurance, because it's rooted in understanding. Family relationships, too, can benefit deeply from silence. Parents often feel the need to lecture, to advise, to speak endlessly to make their children understand. But sometimes, what a child needs most is not advice but empathy, a listening ear that doesn't interrupt. Silence allows love to express itself through patience, through acceptance. When you listen in silence, your child, your partner, your friend, they feel seen, they feel valued. And that's what strengthens the connection. But let's be honest, silence in relationships isn't easy. Our ego hates it. It wants to speak, to defend, to be understood first. The mind whispers, say something, don't stay quiet, they'll think you're weak. But silence is never about surrendering to weakness. It's about surrendering to wisdom. It's saying, I choose understanding over argument. Every time you hold back a harsh word, you're watering the roots of peace in your relationship. Silence also gives you perspective. When you stop talking, you can actually see the situation more clearly. You realize that many fights are not about truth, but about emotion. You see that anger often hides hurt, and criticism often hides insecurity. Silence helps you look beyond the words to the feeling behind them. Once you see that, forgiveness becomes easier. You stop taking things personally and start responding with kindness. Another beautiful quality of silence in relationships is its healing power. Time and silence together can repair what words have damaged. There are moments when both people need space, not to leave each other, but to return with clarity. Silence allows wounds to breathe. It gives emotions a chance to settle. And when you meet again, that quiet reflection brings maturity and growth. Silence also brings gratitude. When you're not constantly speaking or demanding, you start noticing small acts of love. The way someone remembers your favorite tea, the way they listen even when you ramble, the way they support you silently. In the noise of everyday life, we miss these gentle gestures. Silence allows us to feel them fully and appreciate them deeply. Sometimes silence is the greatest apology. You don't always need to say, I'm sorry. Sometimes it's in your silence, your changed behavior, your gentle actions that the other person sees your regret and your effort. Silence makes apologies real because it's not about saying sorry, it's about showing it. And then there's the silence of distance, the kind that teaches you the value of presence. When someone you love is far away, silence makes you realize how much they mean to you. It strengthens the heart, it deepens appreciation. Because in the absence of words and presence, love finds its true test. So, in every relationship, whether it's love, friendship, or family, learn to use silence wisely. Use it to listen, to heal, to understand. Let silence be your response when anger tempts you. Let it be your comfort when words fall short. Let it be your bridge when distance grows. In the end, silence doesn't separate people, it connects them on a higher level, beyond logic, beyond ego, beyond words. It teaches you that sometimes the most loving thing you can say is nothing. Because silence, when filled with understanding, becomes the loudest language of love. The tongue is easy to move, but hard to master. Silence is the first step to mastering yourself. There is a deep and beautiful power in being able to stay quiet when your emotions are screaming for release. Every time you resist the urge to speak when angry, to argue when provoked, or to gossip when tempted, you strengthen your inner discipline. True self-control is not found in how much you can say, but in how much you can hold back. Most people think strength means physical power, lifting heavy weights, achieving big goals, conquering the world. But the greatest victory is the one within. The battle to control your tongue, your temper, and your reactions is the hardest fight you'll ever face. Because your words are like arrows, once released, they can never return. They may hit a target you didn't mean to hit. And even when you apologize, the wound may remain. Silence is that protective pause, the space that saves relationships, dignity, and peace. Think about it. How many problems in life come from speaking too soon, too harshly, or too much? How many times have we regretted what we said in anger, frustration, or pride? Silence doesn't mean you're suppressing your emotions. It means you're allowing them to cool before they control you. It's choosing to breathe instead of explode, to observe instead of overreact. That moment of silence between emotion and expression, that's where maturity is born. When you start practicing silence, you begin to realize how impulsive we often are. Someone says something offensive, and instantly the mind responds, I'll show them. That's the ego speaking. But if you stay silent, you give wisdom a chance to enter. In that short pause, you can ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Will this matter tomorrow? What will silence achieve that words might destroy? Most of the time, the answer is clear. Silence keeps your peace intact, while unnecessary words scatter it. Silence trains you to master your emotions rather than being enslaved by them. You start recognizing that you are not your anger, not your irritation, not your pride. You are the awareness behind them. When you're silent, you can observe emotions without acting on them. You start to understand their roots, why you feel the way you do, what triggers you, what lessons are hidden beneath your reactions. This is self-mastery, awareness before action. In moments of silence, you also begin to notice how your words shape your energy. Speaking excessively drains you, both mentally and spiritually. Every word carries vibration. The more you speak without purpose, the more scattered your mind becomes. But when you choose silence, your energy gathers inward. You become grounded, focused, peaceful. That's why monks, sages, and enlightened beings practice long periods of silence, not to escape the world, but to master themselves. Self-control through silence doesn't mean suppression. It's not about burying your emotions. It's about transforming them. When anger arises, instead of reacting, you sit with it. You feel it, understand it, and let it pass. The moment you speak from silence rather than from emotion, your words carry healing instead of harm. You realize that silence gives you the freedom to choose your response. And that's where real power lies. There's a beautiful saying: the more you talk, the less you listen. And the less you listen, the less you learn. When you embrace silence, you make space for listening, not only to others, but also to your own inner voice. You start hearing your intuition, your conscience, your truth. You learn that silence is not emptiness. It's a full, vibrant awareness. It's the foundation of mindfulness. Mastering your tongue through silence also cultivates humility. You stop feeling the need to prove you're right all the time. You understand that wisdom doesn't need validation. The humble person doesn't speak to impress, they speak to express what is necessary and beneficial. Their restraint becomes their strength. You notice that when you practice silence, you stop reacting to every small irritation. People's opinions don't shake you. Their negativity doesn't control you. You become calm amidst chaos, balanced amidst noise. In relationships, this self-control can change everything. Instead of arguing back, you listen. Instead of reacting in anger, you respond in patience. Silence gives you time to understand before you speak, and that understanding often prevents pain. It helps you break the cycle of reaction that destroys trust and peace. Every time you hold back a harsh word, you plant a seed of healing. And as you grow in this practice, silence becomes your teacher. You begin to see how often the urge to speak comes from ego, the need to be right, to be heard, to control. But when you stay silent, the ego softens. You begin to value peace over pride. You start feeling a new kind of strength, one that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to win, doesn't need to explain. That strength comes from inner mastery. Silence also teaches endurance. Life will test you through misunderstandings, criticism, and unfair treatment. But when you can stay calm and silent instead of reacting, you rise above the test. People may try to provoke you, but your silence disarms them. Your calmness becomes your armor. The world respects the one who can remain unshaken, who can endure without losing their center. There's an old story about a monk who was insulted by a traveler. The traveler shouted angrily, trying to humiliate him. The monk said nothing. After some time, the traveler asked, "Why don't you say something? Why don't you defend yourself?" The monk smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who does it belong to?" The traveler replied, "To the one who offered it." The monk nodded, "Exactly. Your anger belongs to you. I choose not to accept it." That's the power of silence. It keeps you free from others' negativity. Silence is the highest form of self-discipline because it teaches you that not everything deserves your voice. Not every situation requires your reaction. It shows you the difference between speaking with purpose and speaking with impulse. Every time you choose silence, you rise a little higher above the noise of the world and closer to the calmness of your soul. So, start practicing it. Pause before you speak, breathe before you react, and reflect before you respond. In that sacred pause, you'll find peace, strength, and wisdom. Silence won't just change how you speak, it will transform who you are, because the one who has mastered silence has mastered themselves. God doesn't speak in noise, He whispers in silence. When you quiet your mind and step away from the chaos of life, you begin to hear that whisper. It's not a sound that reaches your ears, it's a voice that touches your soul. In silence, you feel connected to something far greater than yourself. You start realizing that there is a divine rhythm guiding everything, and the more you stay silent, the more clearly you sense it. We live in a world that worships noise, phones buzzing, people talking news running, notifications flashing. There's a constant flood of sound around us. Yet, amidst all this noise, we often wonder, why can't I feel peace? Why can't I hear God? Why does life feel so confusing? The truth is, you can't hear the voice of the divine in the middle of noise. You can only hear it in stillness, because God doesn't shout to get your attention. He waits for you to be quiet enough to notice His presence. Silence is the language of the soul. It's where prayer begins and where peace is found. You may have noticed that when you stop talking and sit quietly, even for a few minutes, something within you starts to soften. Your breathing slows down, your thoughts calm, and your awareness expands. That's not emptiness, that's connection. In that moment, you touch something sacred, the inner presence that's always been there, waiting to be heard beneath the noise of your mind. When you stay silent, you open the door to divine guidance. You begin to feel gentle nudges from within, a thought, a feeling, a knowing that seems to come from nowhere, yet feels perfectly right. That's how God communicates, not through thunder or spectacle, but through intuition, insight, and inner peace. Every great saint, mystic, and spiritual teacher has said the same thing in different ways. If you want to hear God, go into silence. Think of nature. It's filled with God's presence, yet it speaks silently. The sun rises without a sound. The flowers bloom quietly. The stars shine in silence. And still, their beauty moves hearts. Their presence teaches lessons. The divine works the same way, silently yet powerfully. The more you attune yourself to this silence, the more you feel God's presence in everything. You realize that He's not just in temples, mosques, or churches. He's in every breath, every sunrise, every act of kindness, every heartbeat. Many people think prayer is about speaking to God, but the deeper form of prayer is listening. It's when you stop asking, stop explaining, stop worrying, and simply sit in silence, open and still. In that space, you don't have to say anything. God already knows your heart. The silence itself becomes your prayer. It becomes a bridge between your human self and your divine essence. In silence, you also find healing. Every pain, every worry, every unanswered question starts to lose its grip because silence connects you to the eternal, the part of you that is untouched by life's noise and struggles. When you sit quietly, you start realizing that all the problems that seemed so big begin to shrink in front of that vast, peaceful awareness. That's the power of divine silence. It doesn't change your circumstances immediately, but it changes you. It fills you with strength, patience, and acceptance. Silence teaches faith. It teaches you to trust the process even when you don't understand it. When you're constantly talking to others, to yourself, to the world, you're trying to control everything. But silence invites surrender. It's saying, I trust you even when I can't see the path. And when you surrender in silence, life starts flowing more easily. You stop forcing things, and miracles begin to unfold naturally. There's a saying, when you talk, you repeat what you already know. When you listen, you might learn something new. The same applies to your relationship with God. When you're always talking, even in prayer, you're stuck in what you know. But when you listen in silence, you receive what God wants to show you. That's where true transformation happens. Silence also purifies your heart. When you go deep into stillness, you start seeing yourself clearly. Without the masks, without the noise, you see your fears, your attachments, your weaknesses. It's not always easy, but that honesty leads to growth. Because when you see your inner truth, You begin to release what no longer serves you. Silence becomes a mirror that reflects both your humanity and your divinity. And then something beautiful happens. You start feeling a gentle presence everywhere. You realize you're never alone. Even in your darkest moments, even when no one understands you, silence becomes your companion. You start feeling that invisible strength, that divine comfort that says, I am with you. That's not imagination, that's connection. The greatest spiritual experiences are often born in silence. Whether it's meditation, reflection, or simple moments of gratitude, silence connects you directly to the source. Words separate, they create distance. But silence unites, it merges you with the whole. In that union, there's peace beyond understanding. So, make silence your spiritual practice. Spend a few moments every day away from your phone, away from people, away from distractions. Just sit, breathe, and be. Don't force thoughts away, just watch them pass. Slowly, you'll notice that beneath all those thoughts, there's a stillness, calm, vast, unchanging. That stillness is the presence of the divine within you. When you begin to live from that silence, life feels lighter. You stop chasing peace because you become peace. You stop searching for God because you start seeing Him everywhere. In your breath, your smile, your silence. And that's when you truly understand God doesn't need to shout to reach you. He's been speaking all along, softly, patiently, through silence. You just had to become quiet enough to listen.